Well, good morning, gardeners. It is that time of year. We've got our spring winds going on. It's 55 degrees last night. We had our first freeze in about probably 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to go over our seedlings today. We've got a whole new crop of seedlings for summer, and we're going to go through and talk about some of the things that we can do in order to make them grow better when we get them outside and give them more of a head start. Because that's the whole reason why we start seeds, right? Other than saving money. So we started on the top right here. We got a whole bunch of peppers here. I think I counted 100 pepper plants, and these are the ones that I potted up a week ago. So you can see how much they've grown in a week. It's crazy how fast they grow. So from here over, we have lipstick bell peppers. And then this row right here, we just have a small row of sir purple peppers. And then we have from here to about here is cayenne peppers. And then halfway back here, all the way to here, well, there you go, is Craig's Grande jalapeno. And then we have a couple shepherd peppers here. And these are just another type of bell pepper. So when we get all of these going, we've up-potted them. And once we up-potted them, they really took off. So, I mean, that's obviously going to be first for some plants, is you want to up-pot them as much as possible. I went for smaller pots this year. Usually I do these, but I went for this type of pot this year just to kind of test it out and see I could fit a lot more on my tray this way. So that really worked out pretty good. But we're going to go through here and just look at some of these. If we start over here with the lipstick peppers, they're pretty squat, but I mean, if you can see, like, this is a pretty sturdy plant. So we're not going to do anything quite yet. And we can go inside and find some that are starting to get bigger. But what we want to do is we want to make sure they're not flowering, first of all. Luckily, we are not flowering yet, but that is something that could happen, especially as the plant starts to get more root bound. It'll actually flower in the pot in your house, and you don't want that to happen. If you think about it, if you start growing peppers now in the house, then you're just kind of setting yourself back because the plant thinks that it's trying to reproduce and it's trying to, you know, basically carry on its genetics to the next generation. And so we definitely don't want that in the house. And it can happen because peppers, you start a lot earlier. At least I do. I start about a month ahead of like my tomatoes and stuff, which you'll see the difference. And when you get the peppers inside and it will start to flower, it slows that plant down. So we want to keep removing those if possible. So right now we've got about another, I think these are going to start going outside, and this is going to be a really slow process for these in about a week. I've got a cart on wheels that I can put in so I can roll it out in the heat of the day and bring it in until it gets warmer and warmer. So they won't really stay outside all the time, but they'll get used to being outside more and more. So I am selling these peppers, which is why I have 100 of them going. What I like to do is I come through and I'll just look and see if any are getting big enough. And these all look pretty good, but if we come over here to these cayenne peppers, the cayenne peppers, you can see they're starting to get fairly long. This one right here in particular is about 6 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come through and clip the top off. And so that's going to do two things. One, it'll give me some more space in here, but two, it'll start to bush out and it'll branch out, and that means that'll be more growth. So this works really good with your smaller peppers. So we'll go through, and I'm not going to do it all on camera because it would take forever, but we're going to pull out all of these peppers and just do like this. Just clip that top one. So like for instance, this one right here we would do, you see where it's starting to come up right here, we would clip it right above this leaf. And then that's gonna cause it to branch out right there. So we should get a branch here, here, and here. So everywhere there's a leaf, you'll start to get a branch, and then you'll get more and more. It's just setting you up for more success in the future with the peppers. So like I said, I'll do all of these now, today or tomorrow, and then I'll put them out in a week and I'll start hardening them off. And between now and then, I should start to see them bushing out a little bit. And then once we get them outside, they'll have more room. The sun will be more intense. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the weather will be warmer. because we've got a lot of people that are depending on these peppers, so we need to get them theirs. And I also want to get mine bushed out too. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. If we go a little bit lower to the next one down, then we'll talk about what we have here and what we can do about those. So I did have some overflow peppers here. So these are Jimmy Nordellas. These are like a frying type pepper. And same thing, as they get probably, once they start to meet this light, we'll clip them again. But we have not clipped these yet. And you can see in the back, they're actually starting to touch the light. So I'm gonna need to lift that up some. So we'll come back and do that. This tray right here, we just planted a couple days ago, and this is filled with, I put the tags in backwards, or I put the tray in backwards, so somehow, some way you'll see. But this is pumpkins, zucchini, scallop squash, yellow squash, cantaloupe, and I think I did another summer squash here. I can't remember. I had to do a double row. And when I did it on the live, everybody kind of chose what to do. So, and we're gonna do more of these trays because each one of these will be potted into something like this when it's time. And that way it'll get more room and we'll be able to plant it. So we should be planting these out roughly, I'd say we could squeeze one in 2 weeks, maybe a week in the greenhouse. And these do not take long to go. So we wanna make sure that you wait until last to do it and you have plenty of room because they're gonna grow fast and they're gonna need to be up potted. And this just came up yesterday, so it took 3 days for these to pop. This one here is going to be Better Boy tomatoes. So I started these last. So they're just about to get their first fertilizer. As you can see, we're starting to get a true leaf. So we'll get a shot of fertilizer to it, I'd say tomorrow or the next day maybe when it's a little warmer and I can take them outside. And then they'll really start to go. I did give them a little bit of that granular fertilizer for now. So they're getting going. This is the Cajun Jewel okra. So okra grows really fast when it's ready. And you can see, I mean, they're stretching pretty good. And I did put a couple, the seeds were kind of old, so I put a couple in each cell. But we're gonna grow these out inside, and sometimes I go in between starting them inside and outside. Didn't wanna direct sow them this year because my plan is to grow probably 90 to 95% of my okra in my greenhouse. So I should be able to get those in a little earlier as well. Now they need really warm soil, so I wanted to get a jump start on them, but they're gonna get big fast and they're probably gonna be up potted fast. So we may give them the same treatment as the peppers, depends how much room we have out there. So we'll see how that goes, but we definitely want to get these going. I mean, man, they're so tall right now. I'm gonna have to juggle around a little bit because I like to keep all of my plants where the light is as close as possible to them. So I'll move them around and they'll probably go, I'll say they'll probably go with the tomatoes when I up pot them. So we'll see. Now I have more tomatoes other than those Better Boys that are ready to be up potted. So we'll be doing those soon too. Now I didn't start a whole lot of eggplant, and there's a couple reasons why. One, eggplant, if it does produce for me, which it usually does, I get a lot off of it. But two, it's not a real big seller. A lot of people don't like eggplant. So it's the same thing. They're actually pretty slow growing. We up potted these at the same time as the peppers, and they are actually doing really good. We need to thin one of these out now. So we don't really do anything really different with these. If they started to get real tall, we would actually top these as well, just to cause a little bit more bushing. But we don't want to get too crazy with them. So we just kind of let them grow. They're slow going, and we'll kind of see what they do. You know, starting or growing eggplants is very rewarding because you get a lot out of them. The next thing we have is some green zinnias. So these I actually saved seeds from, and I wasn't sure how they were going to go, but I actually got pretty good germination off of them. Most of the cells came in except for 3 and 3 here. So that's a pretty good germination rate. I'm not crazy about them because the flower is green, but I had the seeds, so I decided to start them. And I had to actually pull a lot out of here because I needed room. I mean, I don't want the flowers to take precedence over my vegetables. I love growing flowers, but the vegetables are just #1 for me. And what we actually did is we started some seeds in a tray on that live we did last week or two ago. And I actually put them in my greenhouse because the thought process, and it's for most things in the garden. I mean, have you ever had a tomato like fall on the ground and then the next year you get, you know, free volunteers coming up? So the thought process was, if they're gonna grow in nature anyways that way, why don't we just put them out in the greenhouse, let them do their thing. It gets warmer during the day and it stays a little bit, I think this year it's averaged about 5 degrees warmer than outside. So we can continuously get some growth to it, and it will eventually catch up, but we're not using room in here. So we're kind of using them both to our advantage versus like the squash and stuff, they wouldn't make it. So, you know, they have to be inside right now. But in a couple weeks, we'll be doing the same thing. We'll be starting more right on our back porch or right in the greenhouse or something like that. So it's just kind of keeping in mind like the different times and different places that we can start our seeds. If you don't want to direct sow and you want to do transplants, you know, sometimes you can just do them right outside on your porch when it's warm enough. And we definitely take advantage of that. And we'll definitely take advantage of the greenhouse for that as well. If you're growing seeds or starting seedlings or anything, let us know in the comments below how they're doing and when you plan to plant some of this stuff out. I'm sure it'll help some other people in the process. Here's our tomatoes, and you can see we've got 2 trays of tomatoes here. We've got plenty of tomatoes going on. We've got Honest Abe tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, Geranium Kiss, which they are a dwarf variety, and as you can see, they are definitely living up to their name. We have Homesteader tomatoes, and then we also have a couple cherry tomatoes here. So we've got plenty of tomatoes going on. I'll probably plant 6 or 7 of these outside, and then the rest we're just gonna sell. The thing with these is this year, I usually grow them in 6-packs, but I did the whole, you know, the whole tray. So instead of getting 30, I tried 36 in, I was only able to get 32 into a tray, but the difference is look how big they're getting in these trays. They are able to stay in here because the cell's a little bit bigger. So we're able to leave them sitting in here longer. Now we don't trim these right now, but we're gonna continuously feed them. It's been about probably 4 days since I've given them some food. It's almost time to water them. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we will give them another feeding, and then we're gonna up pot all of these. Some people like to up pot the determinants and the indeterminate tomatoes differently. Some people don't up pot the determinate tomatoes. I go ahead and up pot them, and when I do, I'm gonna probably pull this limb right here, and then like if we use this one for example, I'll pull this limb and then plant it all the way as deep as I can in this crook, and then it'll just continue to shoot roots all the way down the bottom, and you'll get a stronger plant. And these will shoot up really fast once you plant them, up pot them. So once they get a little bit taller, then we'll start hardening them off. And then when we plant them, we're gonna plant them even deeper in the ground so we get even more roots. And that's gonna be the key to all this because it gives it more stability, and then it'll make them stronger and you'll get more fruits off of it. Now, as far as the indeterminate tomatoes go, we will continuously up pot these as much as possible, and we are actually going to take our time putting them into the ground because we want them to be as big and strong as possible. And it's going to be kind of tricky with these little dwarf ones because they are an indeterminate type, but they are dwarf, so I've never really seen plants this small look this strong. So this is my first time growing these, so I'm pretty excited. And we'll get our cherry tomatoes out first because they are always like the first producer in the tomato family. So we'll get those out first, and they'll be producing, I'd say we probably get some cherry tomatoes, I'd say roughly in June. We'll start getting them like early June, late May. And then the determinants we'll start getting in June to July, through July. And then the indeterminants, who knows? We'll get them when we get them. This right here is all my ground cherries, or husk tomatoes. They don't look the same. They are definitely a lot smaller, and they are due for their first feeding officially. So we'll be doing those at the same time, and I can actually see some yellowing on some of the tips, but it's crazy how small they are. It always shocks me because I'm waiting. I planted them at the same time, so you can see the difference. Now I'll come back in and I'll put some dry fertilizer in, and then we'll give it some fish fertilizer as well, and then we'll keep that going. So we won't do anything different with these. We will, depending on the temperatures outside, we may up pot them, but we still have a little ways to go. Once we give it this feeding though, they are going to start to take off. So we can withhold food and give them food as we want them to grow. So we're really going to start pushing these because we want them to catch up, because this is actually one of our favorites to grow. If you've never had one before, it tastes like a pineapple, but it grows like a tomato, and you don't pick them until they fall on the ground. And then we have a couple more eggplants here, just didn't have room. And then finally a little update on the sweet potatoes. So they are coming up. All the ones you see coming up were the potatoes from last year. So these all are producing slips at this point. And I think we might be about to pull one off and see if we can root it. We're going to start doing some tests. You know, this one's got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm about a third of the way there for the amount of slips that I need. And if we come over here, these are the potatoes from last year. And if I just want to pull one up and look at it, I can't help myself. I know I shouldn't. But let's see what's going on underneath. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing's going on. So we'll have to see what's going on with this. We're just going to keep doing our thing and taking care of them. And honestly, we're just going to say a little prayer that it does its thing. And we'll keep watering it. It is definitely due for a watering. At this point, it is dry. So we'll take this out and water it. We'll probably do this today if I can take it to a warm spot and then get it going. But we will pull these, and then we will either stick them in water or put them in some dirt. I think I'm probably going to put them in some 6-packs and see about rooting them in there, because I've had pretty good luck with that in the past. So we're going to do that. But as you can see, we are definitely getting slips at this point, and we are at this point getting new slips every single day. So at this point, it's just the final countdown. We are going to definitely, once we get these out, we will be up potting our tomatoes and putting them up here. We will probably be moving the flowers out sooner than later as well, so we can get as much room as possible, because we're going to do probably 4 or 5 more trays of squashes as well. And we're just going to fill up the rest, because once they get filled up and they start coming up, all those other trays that we're going to add, then we'll be able to up pot them and just put them outside for that. And so that's going to give us a lot of space. And then hopefully we can shut all of this down in about a month. And we're only going to shut it down for a couple months until we start going for our fall stuff. But everything's going really good. We've got a lot of plants going on here. I think I've got 100 peppers, and then I've got probably 80 tomatoes, and then a handful of everything else. And we're really excited this year about doing the squashes inside, because we want to get a jump start on them before the squash vine borer comes. When they come, it's brutal. And I was just kind of thinking about maybe squeezing some into the greenhouse too. I might kind of pack it pretty tight while things are growing, and then give them time, so then when they stop producing, I can pull them out. So we're going to play with that, and I'll definitely show you guys. The greenhouse is coming to an end for the winter season. In the greenhouse, the winter is basically spring all winter. So we're about a season ahead, and they say when you use cover, you're about a zone above. So I'm pretty much, you know, if I'm in 8A now, then I'm in the greenhouse, I'm in like 8B to a 9 in there roughly. So we'll see what happens, but it's coming to an end, and we're going to pull it out. And I'm going to go through here and trim all of these peppers that need to be trimmed so I can get them ready to go outside. And I'm super stoked to put them outside. Goodbye.